So evolving as a QA, and do you still care about quality? Today, I would like to take you on a journey through stages. There will be 5 of them, and all these stages represent a milestone in my career, in my adventure. And it all began a few years ago when I was coming back from university, and I noticed an interesting name of a company in the building office that I was passing by every day. But I had no idea what they were doing, so I went home and I did what we all do when we don't know anything about something. I Googled it. I learned about their website, that they have a really, really nice, at least that's what I thought, experience on this website. But I had no idea what actually the company was doing, even when I went through all of that. Things changed a bit, fortunately, after some time. But also what I noticed was that there was a careers page, and they had an open position for someone named Junior QA Engineer. And I had no idea what commercial software development was, what testing was, what quality assurance was. And I went through all the requirements and I said, I know some web development because I dabbled with it in the past. I know some English. I thought, as most students do, that I knew object-oriented programming. And when I was going through requirements, I said, well, even though I have no idea what this role is about, I fit the description. So after a big push from now my wife, I sent my CV over there. I applied for the job. And who knew that this was basically one of the best decisions in my life? We are recording, right? So for the record, marrying my wife was the best decision. She did not force me to say that, but yeah. And I received an email back from HR with some homework assignment. And I spent a whole weekend Googling things that they asked me to do because I had no idea what the task actually asked me to do. So I sent the solution back, hoping for the best. I was invited for a tech interview. And after this, I guess I did somehow not that bad, because I received a reply next day from HR saying that, unfortunately, I do not meet the junior level requirements, but they offer me an internship. And you know, I was a student, so they wanted to teach me things and pay me for that. So that was a no-brainer. And the fact that the office is 10 minutes from my apartment also helped in that area. So that's how I landed on the very first stage of my journey, and I became an intern. And just like you see on this picture, I was like a child, running around and doing what children do best, asking questions. And of course, when I got the answers, I asked even more questions. And looking back at these questions and questions and questions, 2 of them were the most important. What is this all about? What this software development thing is all about? Because I was studying something totally different, and I had no idea about all these different processes, tools, techniques that were at place over there. And the second one, is it for me? Because, again, I was studying something totally different, so IT was not that popular back then. And I said, yes, this is something that I really enjoy doing. So after some time, I was asked by my boss to actually come and talk with him, and he asked that, well, we are liking what you are doing over here. We would like for you to stay. So I said yes, and that's how I landed on level 2, and I became a junior. And as you can see, he's slightly bigger, but not that much. He's still running around, but there is a big difference here. He's wielding a hammer. And this hammer represents different test types that I have learned about, different tools that people around showed me, and I could use them to make my testing better. I have also learned about different test techniques, different heuristics that also mentors around me showed me the ropes around the craft of software testing. And I really liked what I was doing, running around, smashing software, raising bugs, making developers sad, making developers happy. And after some time, I again evolved further. I became someone called independent. And things change here, as you can see. Independent is someone adult, someone grown up. He's walking calmly, and he still has the hammer, of course, but he also has the spyglass, because he knows that before hitting the hammer, first you need to inspect things. Because bashing things blindly, well, it gives you some results, but it's actually better to think first. And also, I have learned about all these different things, like non-functional requirements and how to validate them. This was a whole area of new things that I could try and tinker with. I have learned about different processes happening either in my team and also within the company. And again, as I already mentioned, as a student, I thought I knew how to code. But the developers around me, I had met many great people that showed me how to actually do it properly. So I have learned programming. And something that maybe is a bit of a controversial term, the technical testing, because testing software is technical by definition. But this is something that I like to say to distinguish it from testing on the surface, from testing under the hood, just looking in the inside of your application and trying to figure out how things actually work. Because the most important thing on this level for me was understanding the technology. Because you cannot test things properly if you have no idea how things work. How can you assure quality when you don't know what the application actually does under the hood? And after doing things again and again, I have evolved even further. I become senior. And as seniors do, senior is a laid-back guy, right? Because he knows things, of course, because he's a senior, and he saw things. That's why he's wearing a helmet. That's because sometimes things blow up and hit you in your head. He has a full backpack of tools, techniques, different processes that you can easily apply to any encountered problem. And he has his trustworthy companion, a robot, that represents all the automation that you actually need to develop to be efficient, because you cannot do everything by hand. And of course, the hammer is still there, because you still need to smash someone or something from time to time. So, funny thing is that at this level, it's also about moving from execution of given tasks into analyzing things. Because you first need to think about this problem and then try to figure out a solution to it. Then you need to design the whole solution and plan all the activities related to that. These activities are either for you or for your team, because now you also probably manage a team. And it's also about delegating all this stuff to them. So this changes the perspective a bit. And it's also, for me, at this stage, it was about creating tools. I have been fortunate to be a co-creator of our test automation framework. So I have learned a lot. This was a great opportunity. And then I had to support others in using it, either by having one-on-one sessions, pair programming with them, or having some trainings that I had to first develop and then actually execute. It also was about writing documentation, something that we all love to do, right? And at this stage, I also noticed that it's not only important to focus on what we are building, but also ask the question, how are we actually delivering things? Because somehow, this beautiful app of yours that you have tested, you need to push it to your client. And this whole process, this whole delivery pipeline is also important and also can be tested. And at this stage, you can also notice that you start to have a bigger impact on your organization, because you are doing more of stuff related to the organization itself. You are having a larger impact on your team. And also, you may notice that some activities change, because you are not producing hundreds of bugs. You are not writing fancy reports. You are not actually tinkering with stuff, but you are talking with people, and you might feel that, well, after a whole day of work, I'm not doing anything. But this is something that I like to call glue work, a term that I have borrowed from Tanya Riley. I highly recommend this presentation of hers. This is something that actually makes things possible, that sticks different elements together in your teams, within your organization. And this is really important job that you do. So it's not always about actually writing some code, about raising a bug, testing software. There's myriad things that you can do in between. And something that's really, really important is senior is not a manager. I have seen many great people pushed into manager roles. They did not want to do that. And of course, they weren't happy. Guess what? People managed by these folks were not happy as well. In the end, they left the company. And the company has lost amazing engineer and was left with a void and with people that were hurt in the process because they were managed by someone that did not want to do that. So don't push your more experienced engineers into manager roles. This is a totally different career path. And some people just want to stick into engineering. And so I'm a bit passionate, as that's already mentioned, about doing things around software development. I like to read about things. I like to watch some videos. I like to write sometimes from time to time on my blog or anywhere else. And I also like to come to the conferences or meetups and talk about stuff. And this allowed me to evolve even further, and I became someone we call, at least in our company, a principal. And as you can see, principal is on a journey again. He's walking and trying to figure out stuff and help others. The backpack is on his back, still with all these fancy things that principal has learned about, ready to be applied to a given problem. The robot is still there. The stick is there to help because the walk is sometimes quite adventurous. And of course, the hammer is always there because smashing is still something that you do, but you do it at a different level. You're not necessarily smashing software or application that you are building or some small processes. Sometimes you need to smash walls within your organization that actually prevent people from working efficiently. So those of you who work in corporations, I guess you know what I'm talking about. So again, principal is not a manager as well. This is still an engineering thing. And this is about advising people. This is about consulting them. It's also about sharing knowledge. And not only anything that I have learned about, that is a part of what I do, but also about looking at all our different teams, our different projects, trying to grab the best solutions that they have come up with and try to apply and show these solutions to different people. Because the bigger the organization, the more tendency to silo the knowledge. And people like to share their knowledge, but sometimes you need to give them a little push to do that. And it's also about looking at different problems and trying to raise awareness about them in different teams that have not yet encountered them, or some risks that they have not yet identified. And this is also something, this stage is also about creating strategies, either for specific teams, for specific projects, but also for the whole organization. And by this, it's also about improving the organization itself, because you have a wider area of influence. So you can actually start to change things. You are actually empowered by the company to do that. And funny thing is, at this point, you also noticed one thing, because I'm also a mentor. Some mentorship is a big part of my work. I log every week a few hours for simply chatting with people, having a coffee with them, talking about different stuff during the lunch. And this is something that you need to do. You need to talk with people, because sometimes they need a rubber duck in flesh, so they want to simply get your opinion on great ideas that they have. And you learn so much from them, because all different people have really diverse ideas, and they also inspire some of your thinking. So it's really important to go there and simply talk with people. And at this stage, I noticed one funny thing, is that all this software development thing, all this engineering that we do, is actually about people. Because the technology, even though we love complicated things as engineers, right? We love to tinker with all these new fancy frameworks. Sometimes not necessary, but, well, shiny new toy, +1. And The technology is actually easy. You can figure it out. But working with people, well, that's a whole other topic, because you cannot throw out people just like that, because you have to work with them, you have to talk with them, you have to challenge their view of some specific stuff. The first presentation today was great about trying to learn about new ideas of discussing with people in a more civilized way. And again, at this stage, it's also about realizing that you need to delegate stuff to folks, because you cannot implement a strategy on your own. You need teams to actually do that. And these teams will take your ideas, and sometimes they will say, wow, thanks, that's really brilliant one. But sometimes they will say like, stupid, I don't want to do that. And they will be right, because they know what they want. They know what are their needs, because they are in the trenches working on these projects, and you are on the sidelines, and you need to trust them. Some things scary, especially when you are not used to trusting people. And also, it's about having empathy. Because you need to get into their shoes and try and understand their context. What are their problems right now? What are they challenged with? And trying to understand that view of their actual problems right now in that particular project and at this very time is something that will challenge also your ways of looking at things. Because you have your own thought processes, right? You think you know the best because you read a lot, you watch things, you speak with different people, but then they're actually doing, they are actually solving the problems that the clients have. And also, you realize that they will make mistakes. I made so much mistakes, also recently. Like, one of the mistakes is actually a topic worth of a separate talk on its own, because I messed big time, and one team is still suffering for that. And you need to acknowledge that, and actually appreciate that by making these mistakes, you have a unique opportunity to learn something new. That is actually very, very valuable knowledge, because it's not theory. It's the practice that actually happened in your project, because you tried an idea, you applied it, you failed. So it's about trying to not make the same mistake again. And that's tricky when your company is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's also, for me, about going back to basics. Because when you look at the software development thing, at its very core, it's still the same stuff. We are here to engineer a piece of software that is supposed to solve a specific problem our clients have. Just like that. But we love to introduce all these complexities. We love to figure out new terms for something that has been done for decades. Some of the stuff that we are struggling with nowadays have been solved for, it was solved long time ago, and we forgot about that knowledge. So it's about also brushing these things that you have forgot, because you need to also revise your whole journey and take a look back that, well, I was also once an unexperienced person, someone that had no idea what they were doing. So you need to also learn people about that, teach them. Okay, so this whole journey through stages is also journey through time, naturally. And as the time went by, I evolved. But most importantly, the industry and technology evolved even faster at the very same time. The same goes for my company. The same goes for the clients that we have worked with. And taking our industry and technology as an example, we have all these different buzzwords flying around. All these different technologies that we like to talk about on different conferences. We had Agile, DevOps, Shift Left, Shift Right, AI, machine learning, VR, all these things that we are so excited about So excited to talk about on the conference, so excited to hear about that, to bring that and, okay guys, now we're gonna apply this new fancy tech. What does it do? We have no idea, but it sounds really cool. And most of these technologies come from companies like Google, Facebook, Netflix, Microsoft. They know what they are doing, right? They are the top of our industry. But let me ask you, how many of you are working at Google, Facebook, Netflix, Microsoft, or other companies of that size? How many of you are facing similar challenges of the similar scale that they are facing? Probably not many of us, right? And we do not think about applying this, like we are blindly copying these solutions, not actually thinking about the journey that they also went through. They have reached that particular point, and their journey is what you should be copying. Their processes, their learning processes that allowed them to actually reach that point. Not the end solution, because this is something that worked for them. Probably will not work for you. Like, great talk that you can Google. It's like Spotify. There is no Spotify culture. They didn't have a process like, yeah, now we're gonna introduce a Spotify culture. No, this is how this company worked. This is how these leaders within these companies enabled few things and make this Spotify culture that we also try to copy in various companies. That this is the process, and this is something that you need to copy. This is also something called the cargo cult. We are thinking that by applying particular solutions, particular things that we observe on the surface, we're gonna reach the same success. And we sometimes know about the end result of that. As for the company that I have been working for, as I grew, my company got bigger and bigger and bigger. At some point, I had to know everyone by name. But nowadays, when I enter the kitchen, I sometimes have no idea if I should say hi, good morning, or hello, sir, are you here to fix the coffee machine? Because I have no possible way of actually getting to know everyone, because we grow so much. And with growth, the bigger challenge has arisen, because we actually have problem to make difference in a larger organization. Because the larger the organization, the harder to introduce change, to actually manage stuff. And that's why at the very moment we are reorganizing the whole company, because we actually reached a certain point that was not sufficient anymore. And the same went for our clients. With the growth of the company grew the size of the clients that we were working with. They wanted to have agile transformation, of course. Now everyone wants to follow the DevOps movement or something next that they will hear on one of the conferences, or CTOs have learned about from others when they were playing golf. And they have bigger budgets. Everyone loves more money, right? And with that money came bigger problems. And bigger problems meant bigger scale that finally justified using some of those fancy technologies that we talk about. And with all that change around me, I had two constants in my evolution that guided me. Because when you look at the names of these stages that I was talking about, you actually may notice that they were prefixes to my job titles, because this is what I had on my contract. But these labels are not important. They're not important to me, because what was important to me was being a quality assurance engineer. Because from this, I have extracted two values, my two constants that help me in my evolution. Keeping quality as a goal, no matter what I do. Either it's testing, either doing something within the organization, and then being an engineer. Someone who loves to tinker with stuff, someone who knows that for every possible problem, there is a solution. It's either a matter of time, budget, or skills that either you have to obtain or you have at the very moment. And by combining these two things, you reach a funny conclusion, especially coming from someone who is actually doing quality assurance. Good enough is perfect. Like really, because perfect is overrated, perfect is overpriced, perfect is over-engineered. It's not actually lean something that Detsu loves to talk about. All the change around you will force you to actually change your perfect application for something else at some point of time. So it doesn't make sense to actually chase the perfection. So, what stage are you on? And do you still care about quality, or are you focused on something else? Because nowadays, we label ourselves differently. We are quality assurance engineers. We are quality engineers, QA test automation engineers, and this is something that I actually saw. And of course, two things that pain me the most, because this actually represents the problems that we have as an industry. Because labels very often limit what people think that they can do or should do. The automated tester, as we call it in Polish, and manual tester. Some companies went a bit further, and they have like software development engineers and test, or went even further and removed the barriers between the different silos. And they have labeled everyone in the company as product engineers. But none of this matters. It's not important. What is important is not caring about labels. Because by caring about the label given to you, attached to you, you are narrowing your viewport, and you are not thinking about the wider picture. And I noticed it many times during the interviews that I had, that automated testers thought that, yeah, I'm just here to write some test automation. I do not care about testing at all. On the other hand, people doing manual stuff had actually never thought that, yeah, but this test automation is not for me. It was never supposed to be my duty, so I have never learned about it, and actually was not really efficient in doing regression testing. So in your evolution, in your journey, don't become a fossil. Because T-Rex was a scary guy. He ruled his times. Sure, he has small hands, so he couldn't scratch his head, but you did not want to mess with this guy. And look where he ended. So, do you want to follow his path? And again, focus on you and use everything around you. Use the industry, the technology that is changing. Use your company and use your clients. Because you are the building blocks of your companies. Either your managers accept that or not, but without you, the company do not exist. And industry and technology also can help you, because others are learning some different things than you. So you can use that knowledge to your need. And if some variable from this equation limits you, then maybe perhaps it's time to change the variable. Because we are in IT, after some time, at some privileged position, because we can quite easily change the job. So use that for your purposes. And keep learning, keep growing, because others are already evolving. I love to take part in the recruitment process, because it gives you a unique window on different companies that sometimes you had no idea that they existed, and also on people's actual needs right now. So this is a nice window on the industry itself, how people think, what people think about the whole position that you are actually recruiting for. And I noticed one thing, that interns nowadays leveled up. They are the juniors that I was back then. And the funny thing is, now, when I'm sitting in the recruiter position, when I would encounter myself from way back then, probably I wouldn't hire myself, because that's how the whole industry changed. Nowadays, people know a lot about testing, even though they did not do anything like in a commercial project, but they know the basics. They know the techniques that I have, when I was starting, no idea about. And sometimes they have some certificates or had done some projects, something that I was never interested in. So, in this evolution, remember about one thing. Don't get too crazy, because you can work tirelessly. You can read hours and hours after work. You can spend whole weekends trying to figure out new things, maybe doing some side projects, maybe doing some overtime in your work, right? Because that's how you can get 5 hours of experience in just 2 years of actual time. But don't get crazy, because there will be consequences, so you must accept them. And this is coming from me because I did that, and it had consequences. My personal life suffered a bit in that area. My mental health suffered a bit in that area. So either you accept these consequences, or you may face some unpleasantries. But don't get scared if you have kids, if you have other priorities, if you have other hobbies. You don't have to be like a full-time passionate about software development. This is just a regular job, so take whatever time you need to actually evolve. And finishing with a famous quote, I chose Dragon Ball. This isn't my final form, because I already took, just a week ago, I took a new position. I became a technical lead in one of the projects. And this is something new, something scary, moving the boundaries of the comfort zone. And I have no idea what the stage 6 for me will be. Will there be a quality assurance in the job title? I have no idea. But I'm pretty confident that with these 2 constants that I have, I will reach something that I won't be ashamed of. And this is something that I wish you, that you will find your constants that will guide you in your evolutionary journey. Thank you so much.